Hello and welcome to Ruggles Roundup. It's the portion of our Elevated Mission podcast where we talk about all things sports. We're super excited to bring this episode to you. So at the end of each NFL season, the NFL Players Association does a report card. So all the players get to do a report cards on, the best teams, the worst teams, get to do a report card on the best coaches, worst coaches, and best owners, worst owners. And then we don't know individual, like who voted what, but we get to see the total results of who got ranked as the best, team to play on from a player's perspective.
Oh, and a lot of these are pretty obvious. I mean, you can see the joy in the players' faces. You can tell within the coaching staffs that they respect those players. The top team is Miami Dolphins from this past year, and you see clips coming out from them training, their practices weekly of them just having a good time with McDaniels, as well as, you're there in Miami, Florida. They've invested into those facilities, and you could tell the players all appreciate that. And that's why you're able to bring in big names like Jalen Ramsey wants to go play there. Tyreek Hill wants to go play there because you build a good culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to see it this year in the in-season Hard Knocks. Got a little deeper dive into that Dolphins world, and I loved it. It's amazing, that just is a very unique culture there versus most probably football teams in general, let alone just the NFL. But I think it's very player friendly, and I think it's very smart culture. They're really concerned about playing smart football and taking advantage of what the other team's given them and how to make sure what is that other team doing. And so I think it's a no-brainer that players are going to love it. The next one, again, another, in my, estimation, you're a lot closer. So you do broadcasts daily about the Minnesota Vikings. And so the number 2 on the list are those Vikings.
Yeah, they're pretty consistently at the top of this list, even before the new GM, the new head coach. They've been pretty high up on this list, and I think they've only increased their status with Kevin O'Connell 100% being a player's coach. He's a guy that was a player. He's a young guy that relates with those players as well. They have a young GM that definitely cares about his players. You even heard him talk about up on the stand during Combine Week, Kwefe Adafo-Mensah. He talked about how all these contract situations with Justin Jefferson, how it's hard because all these rumors are coming out, but he promised that he wasn't going to bring any of his contract talks out into the open light because he wants to keep that in-house. And that's the kind of respect that you want to see from players to GMs to coaches and everything like that. And the Vikings bring that to all their players. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have a pretty decent shot at maybe re-signing Kirk Cousins, getting that extension on Justin Jefferson, is because they bring a high quality just responsibility to the job.
A little Vikings news. Yeah, those rumors about JJ being on the trade block, that's insanity to me. I think no matter what it takes, the Vikings need to re-sign Jay Jets because he is special.
Yeah, I think it's just baloney, probably sent out by other teams trying to cause some stir in those contract negotiations.
Absolutely. If you want to trade him, we're open.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure every team would love to have Justin Jefferson on their roster. The Vikings would not let that guy go. Those guys just don't hit the free agent market. That's just not how the NFL works. The only time those guys leave is because they requested a trade. Those guys stay in their organization. So ridiculous stuff. Number 3, we stay in the NFC North with the Packers. And this is a team that obviously is one of the best run organizations. They are always at the top of the NFL, competing for top playoff spots, trying to make their way into the Super Bowl contention. They've had, amazing quarterbacks for years, and they develop those guys well, and they keep them in-house and let dudes develop, which I think is a huge, huge plus in their organization.
Absolutely. Saw a great job with them this year as it really looked like you lose your veteran all pro quarterback. You go with the guy that everyone had a lot of question marks, and you watch his development over the season. You got a lot of young players on that team, and they all seem to develop and really do a nice job this season. Look out for the Packers in the future. Always a great organization. They do things the right way, and that's why, they're always at the top of this list. The one after that, another organization that has been willing. This one's interesting because they're willing to, even when they're just removed from a Super Bowl, or just they'll go off of a top player or go off of a coach, even if they know that they're a good one, just because they think we got to make a change to keep at the top, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, huge respect to the Eagles. They are always trying to remain competitive, and that's why they're able to be in Super Bowls consistently. Even when they got Nick Foles leading the charge, they're able to be competitive. And so
Why
I
you hating
love
on
the
Foles,
Eagles. I
bro?
think, huh?
I said, why you hating on Foles, bro?
I love Foles. I think Foles
Yeah,
is a
no, I was just kidding.
dynamic player.
Yeah.
Is he one of those NC State quarterbacks? I don't
Uh,
remember.
he was one of those Michigan State quarterbacks when Michigan
Oh, he was
State
in
had
that.
the crazy quarterback room. Yeah,
Yeah, with Kirk Cousins. We just talked about him with the Vikings.
yeah.
But next up we got the Jaguars, which actually is surprising to me, as I honestly have for years had heard bad things about the Jaguars and the ownerships and the GMs and how they run their team. But over the last few years, they've definitely been turning it around. They brought in Doug Peterson, an adult at the head coaching spot, and I think he's one of the better coaches, especially of young developing teams. And I think that definitely raised them up on this list.
Absolutely. I think you got to give credit to the coach, the head coach, and the coaching staff at the Jaguars for this. Like you said, perennial, not thought of as a good franchise to go play at, and then to be in the top five. Kudos to you guys, and it showed up on the field, right? They were competitive this year. Playing good football down the stretch. And so I look for them to continue. If you got a culture that players are happy about being there, and the X's and O's are getting taken care of as well, well, then you're usually going to have winning football. That's a good sign if that's one of your franchises you're a fan of, if you're in that top five list, because the players are happy. And so that's a good place to be. Now, if you're in this bottom five, it doesn't necessarily mean that whoa, we're going to stink. But you know what? Maybe it's either facilities or it's something, about the culture at a team that you'd be in the bottom five. But you're going to see there's some good teams here in the bottom five. We kick off at 28 with a rock solid franchise, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, head coaching wise, I think a fantastic head coach in Mike Tomlin. I think he's
Yeah.
one of those guys that consistently brings that winning culture onto your football team. Now, is his personality type going? I think he's always been a player's coach, actually, as
Yeah, I think the
what
players
I've heard.
usually.
So,
Yeah.
from what I've heard, so I think it then goes down to you win so much that you end up this culture ends up becoming something that you don't want it to. And I think that's the same reason why the Patriots are actually in that fourth lowest ranked squad in this list as well, is you just have so much success that they get stuck in old ways. They get stuck in what they did 10 years ago, what they did 15 years ago. And the NFL, this game is constantly evolving. The guys only have a shelf life of 10 years. So you're getting new guys into the NFL constantly with different mentalities, with different needs in their organization. And when you get stuck in that 15 years ago, when you were winning multiple Super Bowls, you were constantly competing at the highest level, you can end up really isolating some of those players.
Absolutely. Well, you already alluded to it. Patriots are the next on that list. Steelers being the fifth worst ranked. Patriots being the fourth. There's actually three teams on this bottom five that are surprising to me, because it's those two and the Chiefs are actual back-to-back reigning Super Bowl champions. They come in at number two. There's really only two teams on this list of these five that are completely a non-shocker. I expect them to potentially be on this bottom 5 list. But those three, and you got to think about facilities. You got to think of, like you said, cultures that are maybe a little tougher coaching, even if they're player coaches, where they demand excellence. And maybe a player, wants to win, so they're willing to be there, but they're not always the happiest about, being pushed to their limits. And so I don't know. It's an interesting bottom 5 list for me. Because Patriots, we'll see. You got a new head coach. We'll see where that develops. He came out of the Belichick tree, so does a lot change or doesn't a lot change? We don't know at this point. But Steelers and the Chiefs, obviously, we got top-notch, 2 of the top coaches in the whole NFL, and you don't imagine them making any changes there.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. It's the Chiefs in particular is the one that really surprised me. But we have some reasons behind that. Let's talk more about the teams that didn't surprise us. As the third team, the third lowest ranked team was the Chargers, and the lowest ranked team, the Commanders. I think Chargers makes sense. Brandon Staley was not doing the proper job there. I don't think he was loved by the players either. I think the Chargers have always been kind of a turbulent ownership and front office, as they can't even decide where they want to stay at. So I think Chargers are one of those teams that it's not surprising that they're down here, just because of all the constant changes that are always happening.
Yeah. Well, the Chargers kind of, the knock always, one of the big knocks always on them has been cheapskates, right? That's, they've held the reins pretty tight on the purse strings. So, but then this offseason, they opened up the purse string, went out, got their guy at head coach, Jim Harbaugh. So I expect this to change moving forward. We'll see, how the players feel next year, in that Charger system, with the change at the head coaching position. I think there's going to be a renewed hope within the facility, I'm guessing. And I think the same could be said about the Commanders. You got Dan Quinn coming in. I think he's going to do a nice job there. Still a defensive-minded coach, the same as the last reign. But you know what? He has won. He's taken a team to the Super Bowl as a head coach before. He's kind of a players coaches guy. I think it's both these teams, I expect them at the bottom of this list right now. I don't know that I expect to see them at the bottom of this list next year.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I could see them both being at the bottom of this list, or both of them being up to, closer to the middle to upper top 10 kind of spots, just because they're very, very in flux teams.
Yes.
They have a lot of changes that can happen. Jim Harbaugh is not known as the guy who's most player friendly out of coaches. So I don't even know how that's good. That might change just because he brings in a culture that's gonna win football games, and football players can recognize that, and that's gonna boost them up in these standings. I think Dan Quinn has Commanders have one of the best opportunities to flip this thing around. They have a ton of cap space to be able to go and get Dan Quinn all the talent in the free agent market. They have some top draft picks to be able to influx that offense, and winning, that paves over everything, all the cracks. And so I think if Commanders can start getting some wins, I think I talked to you last night about how I think the Commanders could have a Lions-like turnaround, where they go from really bad team this year to they maybe start off the season bad, and then finish off the second half of next season as a winning team that just barely misses the playoffs, and then comes in the next year and 2 years from now being a team that has all this talent that can go out there and actually compete for in playoff games and try and get into second, third round.
Absolutely. No, I think, watch for that. Again, like you say, Jim Harbaugh, not necessarily a player's coach, but winning is kind of an elixir, in a facility, and making people feel good about coming to work every day when you're winning football games. It may wear off later on, where you become like the Chiefs or the Steelers, where, you're winning football games, but, I don't know. I don't know that I love it every day, but I'm here for the wins. So, but here's another interesting on these report cards. We've got a list of the top and the bottom coaches. So number one, just coming off being at the bottom of the team list of rankings, right? You got the number one coach listed as Andy Reid.
And that just makes sense to me. I think the coach has, outside of maybe the quarterback, the coach has the biggest impact on a football team. I think the head coach, probably the biggest impact on a football team. And Andy Reid being at that number one spot only makes sense. He's been constantly a player's coach. He was one with the Eagles and has increased and became even more of a player's coach as he's been here with the Chiefs.
Yeah, he wins a couple more Super Bowls, which is not, I throw it out there like, oh, I just win a couple more Super Bowls, right? That's a big feat, right? But he gets into that conversation of, one of the greatest coaches of all time. I think he's already a Hall of Fame coach. He's already a great football coach, but like up there with like Lombardi and Belichick, like that kind of conversation. If he wins a couple more, he's definitely the cream of the crop in the NFL currently. Then at the bottom of the list, no surprise here, he didn't even finish out the season in his job, and that's Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, the Raiders are just in a weird spot in general. They got just one of the, I don't know what they're doing. Are you trying to
Yeah.
rebuild? Are you trying to win? You still have Devontae Adams on that roster. That's an
Right.
aging wide receiver, but then you got Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback. It feels like they got no leadership there. They don't know which direction they want to go, and somebody needs to take the reins, and Josh McDaniels doesn't feel like he's doing it. And also, I just don't trust anybody out of that Patriots system. And so I just
Yeah.
don't trust Josh McDaniels to be able to turn that roster around.
No, I feel like whenever you look at this list, if there's a former Belichick assistant, they're usually going to be that 32 coach, wherever they became the head coach at. I don't know why that is, but we could speculate on a few different things. But you know what? Now Belichick's not a head coach in the league, so it's going to be interesting to see, kind of where that dynamic goes, where those Belichick assistants end up, and do they change the narrative that's about Belichick assistants currently in the NFL? But they also ranked owners.
Yes, I thought that was very, very interesting because that made the Chiefs ranking make a lot more sense, as ranking at the 32 spot for owners is Clark Hunt.
Yeah, that's amazing. The Hunt family is beloved within the NFL. Of course, Lamar Hunt, Clark's dad, starting the franchise, and so many great memories over the years for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think a lot of this thing has to do with facilities. So unless you're opening up the wallet and getting them the top-notch facilities, the players are kind of like, owner, why don't you get us some nice facilities to be practicing at every day? And you know what? It's nice though to also have that $50 million paycheck that Patrick Mahomes walks home to each year and says, oh, the house is pretty nice, but maybe the facilities could be a little better.
Yeah, and bringing Super Bowls to a place that I wouldn't say has the most dynamic football culture is pretty good, to say the least. So I
Yeah.
think they're doing something right over there in Kansas City. Maybe not investing in the facilities enough, but you got the number one head coach. You're making good player moves.
Yeah.
They're a well run organization. Maybe just need to take a few of those extra bucks that they've earned from winning all those games and put it into the facility every once in a while.
That might help, but I think players still want to come.
Oh, absolutely. You win football. And I mean, everyone hated playing for the Patriots, but they loved winning. Like
Right.
that's, they go there for a few years, they win, they leave, and they're like, that was horrible. But man, I won a lot of games. I'm now a household name now. And so,
Right.
Danny Amendola is he loves the Patriots because of that.
Right.
Nobody would know who he is if if it wasn't for that. Chris Hogan, lacrosse legend, I'm pretty sure, out
Right.
there.
Absolutely.
He's definitely one of those guys. But I think the number one guy makes sense because he's paired up with a young, really nice coach, and right, this is Miami's owner,
Yeah, I believe so. Let me double check that. Stephen Ross.
Stephen
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he does. He owns Miami, and they are willing to put money into this thing. And Florida is a football place. People go to Florida to go play football, and so they're willing to invest into that huge fan base, willing to invest into the facilities and make it an experience for these players. And I think that's why they're able to get some of the top talent over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful facilities. Hard Rock Stadium is a really cool venue to play your games at. And I mean, you're down in South Florida. Like, it never seems that bad, right? Or tomorrow, if today's bad, tomorrow won't be that bad. It's pretty nice. You're never shoveling sunshine. And so it always feels a little better when you're down there in Miami. Not a strange that they're at the top of the owner list, top of the team list, and people are pretty happy. You're winning football and you're in the sunshine. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins, nice job. Steve Ross, it seems like a positive culture there. And it always starts from the top down. So many times we give a lot of credit or blame to the GMs, to the coaches, and rightfully so. But if you watch owners, oftentimes the same owners keep winning, keep doing good things, in the NFL, regardless of who's the GM or who's the coach. And because I do think, you have either good owners or not good owners as far as knowing how to properly run a football franchise.
Oh, absolutely. And then you'll watch even owners evolve as owners, where I've seen, especially with the Detroit Lions, as I'm right
Yeah.
here in Michigan, seeing the evolution of the responses from gosh, I'm blanking on the ownership's name.
Yeah. Ford. I'm trying to think of her first name. Right. Yeah. But the Ford family. Yeah. As you look that up, but yeah, no doubt, and she's done a lot of really good things as far as to bring in the right people and to create that good culture.
Yeah, Sheila Fordham
Yeah.
is her name, and you could see how her passion for that team has evolved, and how the differences. How she talks about the coaching staff, how they talk about the players, the willing to invest into that team has definitely become bigger as they realize this is what builds the winning culture. This is what does it, and that's why those owners, stay winning, because they know what kind of coaches they're trying to hire, what kind of players they're trying to bring in to build that culture there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some of these videos that have come out through this last season of like her down in the locker room and the coaches talking about her and the players, loving what she's done for them through the organization, through the coaching staff and everything. I mean, I just feel like that entire organization is fully bought in. I'm actually surprised that the Lions weren't in the top 5 of the, best teams by the players list, just because they feel so connected as a franchise. But I'll have to sometime take a peek at the full list in here. But I would guess that they're on the upper end, 16th or higher, on that list. They just feel like a team that people are pretty excited about being there and a part of that culture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're able to bring in, keep guys that you're like, and I'm not even talking about actual players. I'm talking about Ben Johnson. Being able to
Right.
keep him in that keep them as
Oh,
the offensive coordinator is just a testament to what kind of culture they're building there. Because I have no idea why Ben Johnson hasn't went and made his big bucks by going out there and becoming a head coach of whatever team is looking for a head coach that year, because he's the first on everybody's list to get hired in, and he says, no, I want to stick with this Lions team. That's a testament to the culture there. And so I'm actually, yeah, I'm surprised as well that the Lions didn't make it in that top 5.
and you don't know how much stock to put in all this stuff. It's kind of like you at your job, at the end of the, year, or whatever, they say, hey, fill out a survey on how we did this year and everything. And how much time and effort do you actually put into that survey? They tell you it's anonymous. Are you nervous that it's not actually anonymous? All those kind of things. And so, but I think it's at least an indicator and into the culture, and a little bit of a look into these teams is, what do the players think? And it was a fun little dive into seeing where these teams rank. Well, thank you for watching and listening to Ruggles Roundup on the Elevated Mission podcast. Make sure, if you're on YouTube, you click the subscribe and you click the like button. We love that you're out there listening and watching us talk about all things sports. We'll see you next time.